Hello, welcome to another episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Horwitz. Hit me up on Twitter, NJ287, also on LinkedIn, where I post more content. The website, you can find everything, dsmsports.net, and the podcast is available on whichever podcast platform is your favorite, including YouTube with video podcasts. We'll get right into it. I'm so psyched for this conversation today. I have loved every time I've spoken to this guest. She has just blown me away with her knowledge, her insight, her info. You're going to hear me speak with Rachel Maeng. She is an advisor, a fractional executive. She's an investor. She's been in this influencer, creator, brand activation space. You'll hear about her background. She'll give us the full story. She's running her own agency. As I mentioned, she's an investor. She's been involved in the NIL space and has a ton of great insight on how athletes can build their brands, how brands want to work with creators, influencers, and athletes. And really, this will help you think about how to use these platforms, how to work with individuals, and how to make sure that when you do have sponsorships and events and NIL, to make sure that things fit right. And she also brings a great perspective, having been a college athlete herself, and understands the mental and physical toll that takes, and how it relates to today's modern challenges for athletes who are balancing NIL opportunities, the FOMO of missing out if they don't take advantage of those opportunities, and while also trying to balance being good at their sport and being a good student. So here she is. Listen up to my conversation with Rachel Maeng. I am back on the podcast with today's guest. I'm so excited to be having her on. Every time we talk, I am energized, stimulated, enlightened. My guest on the podcast today is Rachel Maeng. She is really has her hands in a ton of different things. She's an advisor, a fractional executive. She's also an investor. She's truly an expert in so many spaces around influencers, sponsorship, events, NIL. I've learned so much from her already, and you're going to learn a lot from her today. And welcome to the podcast today, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm always literally every conversation we have is I'm learning something from you too. So
Well, I'm delighted to have you on. This is going to be great. But before we get into the meat of our discussion, tell us about you. I mean, I feel like I want to be you when I grow up, but then I realized I'm so much older than you, so it makes me kind of both depressed and also inspired. But just tell us about
it's
how your career has evolved, and of course, what you're doing today.
yeah, no, it's the skin, like good skincare. Will trick anyone. I was at an event yesterday and same thing. Someone said something and they're like, "You have such good skin." And I was like, "Do you know how old I am?" But yeah, my story really started. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, which is basically Canada. Grew up there. I was a coxswain on the rowing team. Got recruited to Rutgers. Became a Big Ten athlete, Division One. I was a coxswain on the rowing team for all 4 years. During that time, I worked in collegiate and professional sports, even a little bit in like Sponsor United, Insider Score, which is like financial data. So had my background there. And then that brought me to the New York Mets. That was my last full-time job. Was in the sales department there, jumped off into more like consulting, started my first business, and then TikTok brought me on to help migrate the platform from what it was pre-COVID to what it is now. So like the monetization, the DIY, the education. Took a couple creators from that program and started my agency. And that's really where I would say like this influencer market NIL space like really kind of jumped off for me.
And seriously, like coming up at a time when this space was, people were still figuring out what it meant and what it was and all that. Like, I mean, I guess let's back up a little bit into because you were busy when you were in school. I mean, between rowing, but also like you had a full resume by the time you graduated already, it seemed
Yeah.
like, and then jumped into doing consulting, doing your own thing, helping with TikTok. But I guess like as you were going through, like you're taking on these different experiences and picking up new skills and figuring out where the space is going, like how intentional were you about like this is where I want my career to go? Or I'm gonna find a niche here, or like because most of us when we're in college we think about okay, where am I gonna work? Like who's gonna hire me?
Yeah.
You were like already figuring
Yeah.
out how am I gonna do my own thing almost like so. How did you sort of navigate the skills you were gonna pick up, the experience you were able to get, and some of those early like light bulb moments for you?
Yeah, honestly, everything was intentional and everything like aligned with my vision. Funny enough, when I was in high school, I was in like an advanced high school program where I basically did college and high school for biomedical sciences and engineering. So I thought for college, I wanted to go to Rutgers for pre-med biomedical engineering. So I did that for like 2 years. And my coach was like, you know what, your GPA is not as good as everyone else on the team. And also, like, you seem like this isn't like what you really want to end up being. You don't want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I think I was in like 10 clubs and organizations. I was chairing like at least four of them. Um, And I realized like what I really liked was advocacy and being able to work with people, democratize spaces, whether it was like college athletics at the time. But then I realized like a lot of sports is going to jump into this social media area because at the time that's when a lot of players were getting vocal on like Twitter, X. And so I changed my whole career path at that point, 2 years into college, that I was like, everything I do has to now go towards me being able to start a company in this like media, social media, sports adjacent space. So I worked with the PGA Tour, I worked with Team USA, US Rowing, I worked with Main Events Boxing, I worked with Sponsor United, I worked with Insider Score, I worked with Rutgers Football, and I got really lucky, honestly, that every single one of those, mainly the US rowing and Main Events Boxing. US rowing, I got to run an Olympic trial in Princeton as a college student for the Rio Olympics. And then I was the US coordinator on site while everyone else in the team was in Rio at that time. And then at Main Events Boxing, I actually got to help run a Sergey Kovalev fight at MSG before it got changed to Hulu Theater. So everything, was intentional in either working in a larger company to get the name on my resume to almost like pre-qualify me for other big companies, or working for a smaller company like those two, where I was actually doing like very, very big events and very, very big jobs because I knew like I needed to have the mix of actually being able to speak from experience and then having really, really big names on my resume. But that was like very strategic all the way through college. And then when I graduated, same thing, working with Rutgers football, being able to speak from the athletic side, working with the Mets, getting sales experience. Knew I had to have some sort of relationship with TikTok to be able to speak from the social media side. And I'm a big person of like speak from experience, tell people how to do things because I've done them. So then in 2021, I started the agency with some other founders. Eventually, we ended up splitting up, but that was like intentional up to that point. And then this past June, a couple months ago, I sold, and that was all, the timing was not what I thought, but that was always the plan, was to get at least one sale under my belt to be able to advise other companies, to speak again from experience of something that I had done, but also go into this investing world and all those sorts of things.
That's what I was like thinking in my head too. It's like, oh yeah, and by the way, also investing on the side a little bit too.
Yeah, it's like step one, step two, but like everything goes to like that long-term vision. And the experience and like the steps along the way have just been a learning experience at that.
I mean, how would you kind of characterize like the way the space was evolving as you were coming up? Like, was it just the matter of fact that like no one, there's no expert in the space because the space hasn't been around that long, and therefore, if I
Exactly.
just pick up the skills and actually do the thing, then
Yeah.
I can't walk in a room at fresh out of school and be a thought leader and be the expert, as opposed to like having to defer to these senior leaders who have been in the space for 15, 20 years, whatever it might be. Like, is it like I'm kind of getting at like what made you qualify out of the gate? Was it just like, hey, I'm going to do the thing, and no one else will not no one else, but very few people will have had that hands-on experience, and so when I talk, people are going to be able to listen.
Yeah, I think it's two parts. Number one, 100%. It was like I'm always a big believer that if you do something and you're telling someone else to do something, whether you lead a company or a department, like you should have done it before. You can't just say, "Oh, you should do this thing," and like you've never done it, you don't fully understand it, you don't know the work that goes into it, right? Because you can't be like, "Oh, you should do an event tomorrow at I don't know, like crypto arena," and like you've never put on an event at crypto arena, so you have no idea what goes into it. Like you just can't speak from having no experience. So I wanted to be that person that's already done a lot of those things and understood it on like an institutional level. And then second, where I grew up in Syracuse, New York was like 89% white, and I'm Korean and Filipina. I'm adopted, my parents are white, and it was definitely a sheltered community. But the great thing about living there was like you could fail and you had like padding around you, it was okay. And for a lack of better words, I feel like I was treated as if I wasn't Asian, that I was kind of more white, that like it wasn't really, it wasn't a limitation back then. And so I grew up with the audacity of like a 27-year-old white man, because I always thought, you know what, if someone else can do it, I can do it. If it can be done, then I can do it. I didn't think that there was any reason why a woman of color, a person from a small town in upstate New York, an immigrant, I never thought that there's a reason why I can't do these things. It was just if I work hard and if I just force my way into somebody letting me do it at least once, then I would be able to do it again.
And you talked about like developing and intentionally getting different skills, and like even the fact that like I love and that you spent time with like the Mets on just I need to learn how to smile and dial and close deals and do sales.
Literally.
And people don't really necessarily think about that. They're like, oh, I mean, I've done that a very little bit in my life, but also like I never had that inside sales role, and had to go through that smile and dial experience. But it was important to learn. But I say all that to be like, when you think about the skill set that someone needs to thrive in, and not necessarily the type of role that you have today, because you have your hands on a lot of different things, but
I
whether
don't
it's
even know what I'm
as
doing
a
tomorrow.
whether it's someone who's like navigating this space of creator and influencer and NIL, like what are those skills that are like indispensable, that are necessary? Like, do you have to understand? Like, do you have to understand how to work with brands? Do you have to understand like the analytics side? Do you have to understand the content production side? Like, is it if someone is trying to make that their life or make that their profession, like what kind of things are just absolutely necessary to have, and what's maybe overrated in some ways?
Yeah. I think it depends which side of business you're on. Just like in general with brand deals, let's call it, there's the creator side or the talent side, the athlete side, there's the agency side, and then the brand side. I think all three of those sides require a lot of the same skills, but like executed in different ways. I think overall, you do need sales experience, whether you're selling yourself, even in a job application, right? Even in like an interview, you're selling yourself to get that
Yeah.
job. So you do need some level of sales experience. I think if you're an athlete or creator, if you're an agent, you're selling like the product, which is the person, the social media opportunity to somebody. So you do need it. I think there's a little bit of negotiation. Obviously, the agent needs to be very good at negotiating, but so does an athlete, right? Like the brand does not have the budget to give you 5,000, but they can give you 3,000 and maybe a subscription to the service that you're promoting on your social media. So it's kind of understanding that give and take. And I think even with that, like having the humility to know that it's okay, like you're not getting that $5,000 you expect, but like what's the math behind why you're not getting that $5,000? Is your content not at the point where it's worth 5,000, or does the brand truly not have the money for it? And I think that humility goes into the agent side as well. Like, you don't know everything, and like everything is an opportunity to be a learning experience. Like you may not know how to pitch your client as well, but if you do some research and ask around, you might learn how to. I think that's so much of what I see in the industry right now, and creators and athletes and agents and management agencies, all those things is like you, the way that you're doing it, it may work, but there's a lot to learn from like the ways, specifically the creator economy, the way that things have been done in the past, the way that, things have been successful or not successful. I think the NIL economy specifically has a lot to learn from the influencer economy. Like we already know what worked and what didn't work. And so now fast forward, we're watching the NIL economy fail or succeed in the same exact thing. So everything has already, been learned. I think a little humility and interest in like learning about the creator economy, I think is really important for the NIL economy.
When you look at NIL and athletes in particular too, like it, is it better to just say grow my audience and I'm going to be an athlete and get the biggest audience and that's going to ultimately get in my biggest checks, or is it better to just really say these are the niches that I can play in, and hey, I'm going to be the athlete who also enjoys vegan cooking, or I'm going to be the athlete that's really good at fashion and sustainable fashion. Like, how do you think about that sort of like really leaning into something that is much more specific and may limit your broad appeal, but make you really appealing to the right audience and the right brands versus trying to be broad? And maybe that depends on what your ceiling is as a notable athlete or even as a content creator.
Yeah. I kind of go back to the whole like celebrity idea. Like, I don't trust Kim Kardashian to tell me like what products, to eat for, I don't know, like things that don't make sense for her, right? Like, I'm not taking doctor advice from her. I'm taking it from a doctor, but I
Yeah.
will take some fashion advice from her. And like, man, her skims do work. But like, everyone has a thing that either is a part of their characteristic or something they're interested in. And I think that leaning into those when you're a content creator is a great way to have an audience, because an audience that's more engaged versus an audience that's just really broad and kind of just, watching to watch, that's much more valuable in the creator economy, in brand deals, in NIL deals. And so, as it pertains to athletes, you can go out and you can dance and do only trends and get a good amount of followers. But, as soon as you start advertising, I don't know, Nike or Jordan, or you start advertising Kellogg's Pop Tarts or Pringles, if you've never talked about those products before, your page has nothing to do with it. It feels very inauthentic.
Yeah.
And so So, if you're a content creator and you're also an athlete and you talk about training, then you talk about your family, you talk about your lifestyle. Maybe you even talk about like skincare, because you're an athlete, you're sweating. And so, like, how do you clean out your pores? I would 100% trust you to tell me what food to put in my body, what things to put on my skin, like how to train for acceleration or how to train for explosion, because those are the things that you have expertise or you've demonstrated expertise in.
Yeah.
So I definitely think athletes should have some sort of like niche to them. But then also too, like, you're a full-time athlete, you are literally spending all your time training or actually participating in a sport, and like you've limited time outside of that, especially as a college athlete. So pick and choose your battles, like pick and choose your free time. And if you're just making really really general content, like you're going to eat up all that free time.
Yeah, like when it comes to what the brands are actually for, because I love that you have experience working with these brands and
Mhm.
negotiating with them, both the endemic sports brands as well as the non-endemic, like the Kellogg's of the
Yeah.
world that are filling our food shelves and whatnot. And
Oh,
so like, when
Kellogg's.
when they're thinking about like they're building out their rosters, whether that's
Mhm.
athletes, influencers, creators, or whatnot, and you're going to like a negotiation, what is their perspective when they're trying to figure out like who we should be working with? Are they looking for, hey, we want to really hit different locations of the states. We want to hit different. We want to make sure we have some diversity, whether that's male or female or ethnicity or whatever it be, or even like interest areas. Like how are they thinking about that, and how does that affect the way that you, as someone working with an athlete or working
Mhm.
with an influencer, would sort of present them as this is why this person's a good fit for you?
Right. Yeah. Number one, and I think a lot of like athletes, influencers, even agents, and like as an agent or a marketing agent, you should 100% know this because you're the one responsible for getting the athlete deals. But marketing and advertising works in campaigns. It's not just like a random, like, oh, we're going to throw this TikTok out here. Oh, we're going to like put this billboard up. Like, they're planned out months in
Yeah.
advance of what the plan is for the type of content, the medium. So, like, what platform and who they're going to be using. It's planned out months in advance. So, it's, you can't just send an email and expect to get a brand deal. Second, when a brand does marketing and uses some sort of talent to market, it's because that talent can speak to the ideal customer that the brand has, right? So, like, if I'm Old Navy and I'm launching a new jeans campaign, I'm not going to talk to someone that is probably the same person that State Farm is using to talk about an insurance product. Why? Because the jeans might be for Gen Z people who are going to be under the age of 26, and State Farm insurance, et cetera, you're on your parents' insurance until you're 26. So you're not going to be buying the same product that you would at 26 with the jeans. So
Yeah.
it's creators and talent who have that same ideal audience as the brand. And then lastly, it's just, it's figuring out like what brands are really interested in. If you see a brand never having been on TikTok, they are probably not going to immediately choose you to be on their TikTok. Like, figure out where they are and meet them on the platforms that they are.
And in that sense, actually, as an interesting follow-up for that, as an athlete, as or even just a creator in general, is it better to have that sort of breadth of platforms you can offer? Hey, I got an email newsletter, I got TikTok, I got Instagram, I got YouTube Shorts, I even got Facebook if you want that. And hey, I still have a
Mhm.
Twitter, I still have a Twitter channel. I don't use it much. Like, or is it really like I'm going to be really really good at this one master this one platform, and yeah, I may have presence in other platforms, and some audience will migrate there. Like, how do you think about that in terms of like being able to be this multi omni-channel
Mhm.
presence versus really leaning into one space?
Yeah. I think from the athlete side, it's like, how much time do you have? Like, if you're creating content on TikTok, TikTok has a certain algorithm. They have a certain audience that you've attracted, that you talk to them a certain way.
Yeah.
That might not be the same content that an Instagram audience wants, or an X or a Twitter audience or a Snapchat. So, do you really have time to even create those different types of content across all platforms? And then lastly, I think it kind of depends, like, platform to platform, like every time you post a piece of content, it's an opportunity to get a new follower, to have a new brand find you. And so the more content you post, the more opportunity you have to not only grow and get more followers, get more engagement, but also to potentially get brand deals, or honestly, like, to get recruited, because every time you post is another opportunity for exposure that maybe a recruiter at a college will also see you too.
Right.
So I think there's kind of like those two schools of thoughts of opportunity, and then opportunity cost and like
Totally.
ability to execute and like how much time do you really have. So I think just being honest with yourself, and you could try out doing multiple platforms, but if you find out that only one platform works for you, only one platform works for you. Like you only have time for one platform, and you don't want to jeopardize your athletic career at a university or even like your academic career of making you ineligible to be at that university. Because in reality, like some athletes, they're first generation athletes in college. Their scholarship is what's allowing them to be at college. And honestly, some NIL money and like pay for play salary money actually goes back to families who need help paying their
Yeah.
mortgage, help paying for other athletes in their family to go to school and things like that. So there's like a huge reality of, income discrepancy, if you want to call it, that also I think takes into account like what your opportunities and what your abilities are really limited to.
I mean, there are like 4 or 5 follow-up questions I have, but before I move on to one of those avenues, because you just hit on something there at the end there. Like, how does that sort of weigh on some of these student athletes who literally are like contributing to paying rent or mortgages for their parents and for their families? Like, is there a mental health factor there, or even like a pressure factor, like that? Hey, you need to do this. You need to make time for
Yeah.
this because you're helping your parents pay their electric bills.
Yeah, 100%. I think even beyond college, like I've worked with so many athletes, artists, celebrities, whatever you want to call them, um, that like once you have access to money and people think it's enough money for you to share, that's a totally different conversation. And I think that's something that NIL and, professional sports, like these massive checks that you see, like that's something that has been created and is something that athletes, influencers have to deal with now, because what we see, people think perspective is reality, or they think reality is what is actually going on. Half the time it isn't. There are so many talent and creators, even myself, who like the persona that we put on for business purposes or for content is not necessarily like what you see. Like
Yeah.
I'm not out here like going to events for fun. I'm not out here like doing all this fun stuff. Like I'm at my desk 14 hours a day. I only leave the house to go for events. I hang out with my cat and my partner and like drink coffee all the time. Like I'm not, it may seem like I'm living this like crazy fun life, but like really it's just work. And I think that's something that a lot of colleges and even high school students, even high schools, like they're paying more and more attention to. But there's just so many, limitations. Like you're only around your athlete if you're a high school administrator. You're only around that athlete so much. And then the parents take over. You're only around your college students if you're a coach or you're an advisor or a psychologist so much. Like there's I think a lack of education across the spectrum of sports and athletes and influencers about not only mental health, but again, like NIL education, like what are real brand deals? How do you really build a brand? And then financial literacy, like how do you set up an LLC? How much money do I have to put away for taxes? Like, how do I pay taxes? And I think that leads into the broader issue too of like there's too many people in the NIL space. There's too many people in the creator space. Like too many people are always trying to make money off of athletes and influencers and talent versus trying to make money for them. Everybody sees this opportunity of like fame and money as an opportunity for them to make money. And I think, that might be the overarching problem in like the NIL and influencer space right now.
Even within, I want to double click on that a little bit more, even like because it feels like if you are a whatever second team all conference or better, like all of a sudden it's like if you're not doing this NIL stuff, if you're not spending time to create social and create content, create a brand, and not monetizing yourself in this window, it's like, it's not for, and not everyone wants to do that. But is there a bit of like this pressure or FOMO of like, hey, like I'm not making money, even though like I could be because I'm a high performer and I do have a lot of followers, but like how does that dynamic work when it comes whether it's the coach and student athlete or student athlete and their
Mm,
parents or even just student athletes and their peers who are like what do you mean you're not working to get that bag? Like this is your time now, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with that.
yeah. 100%. I talked to so many athletes in college and high school that are like, I'm not doing NIL deals. Honestly, like, I don't have any time. And in reality, I would say, from what I've seen, maybe like 10% of each roster actually in college actively participates and or is even interested in doing NIL deals. Because think about it, like when I was in college, we were practicing every day at like 7 a.m. And
Yeah.
then I would go to class and then I would have 3 p.m. lifts and then I would go to class. And then I was in clubs and organizations. Not only I was also overweight in my position. So I was actively running and doing cardio, excuse me, and trying to do all these things to like maintain my weight for my rowing position for a coxswain. But when does that leave time for me to content create and like negotiate and do all those things? It doesn't. And in reality, like some kids cannot time manage as well as some other kids. So they're not able to participate because they would fail classes or they would fail at their athletic
You almost feel
opportunities.
like guilty for not doing it because it's like, hey,
Yeah, like, and that's the thing. Like, I think like this media and this social media that we see about like, oh, this kid made $8 million. Oh, like so and so athlete just made a couple 100,000 working with Nike. Like, that's great, and that's a great opportunity for that athlete who can handle it, who maybe has a team around that can handle that. But if you can't do it, you can't do it. Like I think that we can't put pressure on athletes to be able to participate in NIL also while not giving them the education about how to do everything that comes with being your own business and running a business. And then there's the mental health aspect that we were talking about before. There's just so many factors I think that go into it. You can't expect it. And even now, honestly, some schools are breaking rules about this. Like NIL was made so you could make money outside playing your sport because you have this platform that you've gotten as a college athlete. But there are some schools that are actually putting money into the NIL salaries. So that $20.5 million, they're elevating what they think the athlete
right.
should be getting so that the athlete doesn't go and get NIL deals so that they don't create this, other to-do list that they have to do outside of their sport. They're paying them extra just so they focus on their sport in school and that alone because they don't want them to like spend their time in other areas doing NIL. So like there's so many things, so many backdoor deals, so many like little nuances going on in the space. Like I honestly can't imagine like what it feels like to be a high school or a collegiate athlete right now having to deal with all this cuz when I was in college I went through a lot of adversity just being an athlete, just being in student organizations, just having internships and just being a part of a team. Like I went through my own struggles and I can't imagine what these kids are going through now.
Seriously, there's so many things I want to touch on here. Like real quick, as every time you finish speaking, I have like another new idea pop in my
You're
head.
like, oh damn, I should have wrote that down.
Some basketball, yeah, seriously. When it comes to like building up these practices, like
Mhm.
and how schools are supporting them, I'm kind of curious as to like, is it these vultures who are coming in saying we're gonna help you create content, we're gonna help you get deals, we're gonna help you figure out your taxes and your business stuff, or is there an opportunity to like, how are you seeing schools score and help navigate this? And what I'm getting at is like, is there a bit of a student economy where like, hey, I have some friends or like my teammates or my other students at the
Yeah.
school, like they're gonna help me with content, they're gonna help me with this, and you almost have this like this intra school economy that can arise, and
Yeah.
everyone gets a little bit of both experience, but also a little bit more trusting because it's not these vultures coming in from the outside. Or is it really like that's a necessary evil? Like these people, you need people that have the relationships, that have the contacts, that have the knowledge and the experience to do this stuff.
I think it's both. So I was a manager in the creator space, not an agent technically. And so like part of our job was, yeah, like finding and negotiating opportunities for the creators that we had on our roster, for the brands that we worked with, all those sorts of things. So, like I'm very aware of like that agency manager relationship with talent. And we were really big on democratization. Like everything we did, we tried to tell the creators slash like educate them. Like I would go and speak a lot. I would speak
Yeah,
directly to the talent about like how to negotiate on your own, like what the real percentages that you should be getting, that you should be providing, all those sorts of things. And so I think the root of the problem is education. And to your point about like who should be doing that education slash who should be helping, I think it just depends. I think in general, there's too many agents in this NIL space, even in the sports space, in my opinion. If you have your own platform and if you have opportunities in brand deals, you don't need an agent. You just need a lawyer and honestly, maybe a publicist, someone that can help get your SEO out there, can help get you in front of good opportunities. But an agent should only be used if their opportunities and the things that they have for you outweigh what you currently have, right? Because at the end of the day, agents make a commission. So they really only get paid on what they bring in or what they work on. And it might get to the point where one agent has like 30 athletes and like he doesn't have time to work on the bottom
right.
20. He's only working on the top 10. And like you're going to get upset. You're going to get like unmotivated, all those things, because you realize like someone doesn't care about you or your business as much as you do. So I think number one, there's too many agents in the space and not everybody needs an agent, honestly. But I think there's people like myself and, people like Sam Green and people in other companies like Advanced NIL at Greenfly who are experts in what they educate about. And
Mhm.
schools should bring in people who can speak from, not for, first, not just speak from experience and speak on education, but I think schools need to actually go a step further and develop curriculum for their athletes about how to, like, what is a personal brand, how to build it up, how to put that voice into action on social media, then how to make an LLC, how much money that you have to put away for taxes, how to file taxes, how to find a good manager and interview them and figure out if they're a good fit, how to talk to brands, how to negotiate, like how to even turn that into a bigger opportunity. Like all the things that go along with NIL, I think need to be taught in some sort of classroom environment. Whether it's, someone like Sam Green comes in and does a one-time event or like a multi-event contract or program with a school, like I think that's school by school, but I honestly think it won't get any better until there's some level of standardized education, and that education is being provided by experts, not just people who have been in the space a little bit, or not just by like athletic departments that think that they can, put things together when they have no experience that space. Like I really think I'm a big advocate for experts being able to teach these athletes, these agents, these parents, these athletic directors, these staff, these coaches, like coming in and teaching. And I really think like there's no continued education beyond that like one-time event of education, then you're not really teaching them. Those kids won't remember it after the next couple months.
Yeah. What are you seeing like out there in the real world, I guess, like when it comes to what schools are doing? Like, are there schools who are like doing it right? And that may mean bringing in people like yourself, like Sam Green, as you mentioned, to really do that kind of education. Or is there something that should be more standardized? Like this is part of NCAA now, or this is part of like, or it seems like schools are more like we're gonna hire an NIL GM that's gonna help source deals and maybe less about like
Yeah.
how to actually manage the stuff with the athletes and give them education. And we had early on, you had like open doors and teamworks and
Yeah.
influencer thing. Like we're gonna have standardized education, so every student gets gets the basic knowledge they need to be able to navigate this space. Like where are we at now? Where should we be heading? And like is it ultimately just going to be each school that some schools are going to serve their athletes well and they're going to bring in experts, or are we going to get to some place where like part of being a student athlete is also getting a not necessarily uniform, but some sort of standardized education that's part of it, part of
Mhm.
being an athlete.
100%. I think everything you said will and won't happen, should and shouldn't happen. I think, you know, until the NCAA or whatever governing body ends up being in charge of college sports, like really standardizes things and just spreads it across all the schools, I think it is kind of like a free for all. Who knows if that'll be the NCAA because so much has changed in the last couple of years. But either way, I think standardizing some level of education, just like base and like products that are available, ways to submit these NIL deals, rules that actually are overarching and, actually cover things that people have been breaking rules, in the past. I think that has to happen. I think also every school that actually gets a GM or dedicates a person towards NIL, whether it be NIL education or NIL sourcing or products or, third parties, I think that's a huge step. Like if you don't have a person dedicated towards that as a school, I think that's a huge loss because you can't just slide, some other athletic director or associate director in that place unless they have experience. And I think that person should have understanding of how at marketing and advertising works, how brand deals work, how
Yeah.
sales works, how, the platforms out there, like they should be up to date. If you ask them like, oh, have you heard of Advanced NIL? Have you heard of Greenfly? They should be like, oh yeah, they do XYZ and we either are or aren't working with them. Like they should be very educated and up to date. And I think there's a lot of schools that don't have that because of funding, but maybe like sending an associate AD for communications out to an educational platform or summit or something to at least help them understand, like that's a cheaper way to maybe convert someone. I think the schools that, have brought me in, or Sam, or Santia, her handle is track baby 001. She does education as well. I think anyone that has brought in a good platform or a good partner, whatever it is taking those first steps. It's really important. Just even admitting like they don't know everything, because you don't know everything. I don't know everything. I don't even call myself an expert. So I think people that are actively making steps to make this easier on athletes, to make the experience something that they can actually leverage and learn from, I think they're doing a great job. Like they have to just keep trying to help the athletes and keep trying to be better in the space.
And honestly, too, like it's kind of funny for me to say, but these are good life skills to have. Like, I mean, I wish someone taught me how to do taxes when I was in college. Like,
Yeah, no one taught me how to do taxes. Like I had to get like I have a tax accountant because to this day my taxes are too complicated. I don't know how to do them. So I hire an expert. Like I'm big on if I don't know how to do it, like I stay in my lane, like I'm only good at so many things. I can make an espresso at home, but I never said I'm a Starbucks employee. Like I don't know how to do that. And I'm not going to tell someone I know how to do that.
I want to touch too on like the and even for your own experience to some extent, but also like just in general as these student athletes really like do monetize their NIL, do have some success with that, do are able to grow a follower base, are able to sort of play creator, play influencer,
Mhm.
and what happens after the fact. I mean, yes, a small, tiny percentage will go on and play professionally, whether it's in one of these major US leagues or overseas, but the vast majority are going to graduate and then real life is going to hit them and start. And maybe a few will be like whatever, Libby Dunn and be able to like make her life out of being an influencer or the Cavender twins or whatever after they graduate, but that's also a small minority. Like, do you see some of these athletes who are successful with their NIL activation that aren't going to have a professional sporting future? They're like, maybe I can just become a full-time creator and a full-time influencer. Is
Yeah.
that like a slippery slope and like danger? Like you be skeptical first, or is this truly an opportunity where a lot of these student athletes can if they get good at it, they build up an audience. They're starting out with that with a leg up. Like, what are you kind of seeing in that perspective?
Yeah. I think being a content creator and being a professional content creator, influencer, doing brand deals, like having your own brand, I think that really got popularized maybe in like 2021 and beyond, of like, oh, this is like a real opportunity. This is a real job. And I saw a statistic a few years ago that was like 80 something percent of kids in middle school want to be influencers and content creators. And like, that's a huge number. But the reality is like, it's very unrealistic, just like the reality of becoming a doctor is very unrealistic. Becoming a heart surgeon is very unrealistic. There's always going to be like a weed out process, whether that happens like in high school or college. Like not every high school athlete makes it to collegiate. Not every collegiate athlete makes it to pros. So there's like that reality factor that definitely sets in. But the skills you learn as a college or high school student that's also running their own business as their personal brand, accepting deals, having to do taxes, like those are, like you said, really truly life skills that you need to have. But also, like if you're running your own business like that, like you're an entrepreneur. um and someone that is an entrepreneur, I can say, like, if I had known all those things when I was high school and college, I think a lot of my entrepreneur journey, especially in the first 2 years, would have been very different. Like, I would have understood a lot more things. If I had understood this investor world that I'm now in, like, I would have had a much different experience with my agency too. I would have gone for investments than self funding the whole thing for 4 years. So I think like all these skills are transferable. I think the creator economy, starting, let's call it 2020 or 2010, and really like growing at 2021 and beyond. I think that created this opportunity and this like career path per se that a lot of people, influencer or not, because like, hey, I'm not an influencer, I was just a manager. And there's influencer coordinator, activation coordinators, like all these positions that have popped up because influencer marketing and athlete marketing, et cetera, have become now like a piece in this like creator economy. All those skills are transferable. So I think it's only good per se,
Yeah.
that you participate in it or at least like learn about it, try it out. Not everyone is going to become a full-time content creator. Not every influencer remains an influencer. Not every influencer becomes a Mr. Beast and creates an empire,
Yeah.
So it's like you have to work hard. You can try. And, if you have the vision and you have the time management and you have the dedication, and honestly, you're willing to make those sacrifices, then maybe you can do that. And there are going to be people that do.
Yeah, for sure. And there's certainly like a perspective on like burnout and a hamster wheel, and it starts to get pretty tiring pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, is
Yeah,
there a
then we can
point,
go down the whole mental health aspect of like being an entrepreneur and being a content creator.
is there a point though, like when a student athlete is going in their last season or their senior year, when you sit down with them and be like, yeah, you got 60,000 followers, you're good at getting like you can get people to review your content, but that might change when you're getting ready with me is not getting ready with me before a big game, or it might
Mhm.
change when you're not on national TV every weekend. Like, is there a bit of a not necessarily a like an inflated sense of like, oh, I'm crushing this. Like, obviously, this is my audience is gonna stay with me after I graduate, and maybe it does. Maybe they do stay with you, especially at the local, like the local base.
Mhm.
Like, I'm from Syracuse, and I'll have to pay for a
Yeah.
meal in Syracuse again because I'm the local kid who made it
Yeah.
big. But you have to almost talk them down and be like, hey, it's going to be harder after you graduate. You're not going to have that big school logo. You're not going to have these big events and the cool story of being a sexy student athlete. But you
Yeah.
can pick up skills around content creation, around audience growth, and you can maybe
Yeah.
take those into not necessarily a full-time creator role, maybe, but into other positions that are tangential to that. Like, do you have to sit down and have those kind of like heart-to-heart conversations on like you're going to graduate, you kicked ass with your
Mhm.
NIL, but don't necessarily go put all your eggs in that basket after you graduate because it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. I think there's two schools of thoughts on that. Like number one, reality like definitely hits in. You get a reality check of like, oh my God, like an apartment is, I even live in LA. So like an apartment is like a one bedroom is like $2,800. And then groceries, like you're spending $50 to $100 every single week. Oh, car insurance, health insurance, life. Those things happen. You realize like, okay, I need to like make X amount of money. To live my life and put money away for savings. Like, what if, you want to get married and have children in the future? What if you just want to adopt? Like, life costs money and like you need to have some level of income. And so, can you do whatever you're doing in content creation or entrepreneurship? Can it allow you to have a life and be sustainable? That takes an incredible amount of work to be able to do that. And so, like, most people cannot be entrepreneurs. Most people don't have their own businesses. Most people are not content creators or professional athletes. Like, that's the reality of it. But the other side of it is I myself am someone who people said, like, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you should do that. And like people look at you and judge you and say, like, I really don't think that's going to go anywhere. And like, here I am at 29, from a small town in upstate New York as an immigrant, as have family that has no idea what I do because it's very confusing because it was never an opportunity or never talked about in the small towns that I grew up with or that I grew up in and that I was around. Like all these things, I just believed in myself and said I have the audacity to make it happen. So there's two schools of thoughts. Like you never know what could happen. I don't think there's a problem with trying. Maybe build yourself a little like nest in case you
Right.
fail, so you're not out on the streets. But also just trying, and like if it's something that you really want, a lot of people can do things that they want that other people say that they can't. But you have to have the tools to be successful. You have to have the time management skills. You do have to have some money. You do have to have the vision, and you have to have the genuine belief that you're going to be able to do it regardless of what people say, regardless of the adversities and the roadblocks that you hit, that no matter what, you're going to keep going, you're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
I think those are the two schools of thoughts on it. I can't tell someone, which is the right path to go down or which one's going to hit you first, which one's your reality, but, at least try.
No, for sure. And part of that is A, like you might have a little mini nest egg if you have kicked ass at NIL because
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to maybe save a little money. And also too, like, and this is why a lot of college athletes are preferred in the hiring realm is that we know they are hard workers. We know they know how to follow a schedule. We know
Yep.
they're punctual and they are
Yep.
dedicated and they're disciplined and all that. And so like those skills, maybe that does make you
It's all
a better,
transferable.
yeah, a better entrepreneur or a better full-time creator, whatever you put your mind to,
100%.
you be able to kick ass in. I
100%.
want to touch too on just really briefly because I'm gonna forget if I didn't otherwise because this is one of these questions that I was gonna ask like
Yeah.
several minutes ago. And I just want to touch briefly on Snapchat because I think that's something that people don't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
think about much. In my with my peers in the pro sports world, like there's still some activity on Snapchat. NFL teams are still very active on there. A few teams here and there will post the stories, and Snapchat just I think we just saw the numbers like 943 million monthly active users globally. But certainly when it comes to brand spending and just
Mhm.
overall priority, it's low on the list after your Metas and after your TikToks and YouTube and whatnot. But in the college world, in the Gen Z world, and the Gen Alpha world, it's very much messaging and even the Snap Map to some degree.
Mhm.
Spotlight still maybe, I don't know. But like, what are you seeing? Given that you work in this world, you know this world, whether it's not necessarily just the athlete side, but it's creator and influencer side in general. Where is
Mhm.
Snapchat fitting? Do college students have a little bit of a leg up because they're on Snapchat more natively, more organically? Like,
Mhm.
where give us a kind of what we need to know about Snapchat today.
Yeah, I think anyone that's already in a platform has a leg up to anyone else that's coming onto it because there's always a learning curve. Number one, like if you already have followers and someone else doesn't have followers, well, you have a leg up because you have followers. But I think Snapchat is another platform that, again, if you're diversifying your platform, if you're looking for other places to make content and potentially get brand deals or have an audience on, like Snapchat is a 100% another platform you should be using. Snapchat originally had different programs for monetization where like the top X amount of videos on the For You page on the spotlight would actually get a cash bonus
Right.
for how well those videos did. They have
Yeah.
other programs now that they use. Like I love Snapchat here in Santa Monica. Everyone that I've met from that office is phenomenal. Shout out to Frank. Like he works there, head of creator industry, and like he's one of my favorite people. I've learned so much from him. So I think they're a great company and a great platform. I definitely think that there are creators that have been using that platform that know this. There are companies like HG Media that pretty much only run brand deals and campaigns on Snapchat. And like, if you're not utilizing it, I think it's a miss if you're already making content and if you're already interested in like having another platform that you utilize. I definitely think brands, if you're already diversifying, you're in every other platform, you should probably put some time to Snapchat. More specifically, if you're looking to get into the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha audience,
Yeah.
because that's where your customers are, then you need to meet them where they are. And one of those places is on Snapchat.
And when brands are looking at how they're putting together campaigns and putting together initiatives, are they just going to be audience first and be like, we don't care what platform we're going to be activating on, we're just after this given audience, or are they saying like, we need to do something on YouTube, and so therefore we're going to look for creators who are really good on YouTube, or is it really like we don't care, like we're going to look for creators who have an audience that are Gen Z, female, Latina, whatever it might be, like
Mhm.
how are brands generally approaching it? Are they like pretty much platform agnostic, or do they come in with an idea of like our CMO really wants to do something on YouTube, so let's do it, or do something on TikTok, whatever it might be.
I don't think there's like a one answer, honestly. I think brands and properties, etc., like they get into the content market in so many different ways, whether it's, you're going on one platform because the majority of your age group that you're marketing to is on there, or because, we have someone on the team who may be an expert in TikTok or, Instagram, we want to put up more carousels. So we think Instagram might be better. Or we only have the ability to take on X amount of platforms, so we're only going to do that. I think there's so many factors that go into it. Um, I think it really just depends on the brand, like on the creator, what the bandwidth is. And, as far as it comes to working with creators and talent and influencers, athletes, etc., you should always, they are experts on the space. Like they're already on there, they're already monetized, they're already doing brand deals, they're already working with other brands, they already have a large following with good engagement. Like, yeah, they're kind of an expert in like the niche and the page that they have. And it just makes sense to borrow a little bit of that expertise from them to create your page, but also to lend you some followers and to mix those audiences through brand toggles or brand collabs and partnerships. Like it only makes sense. When you want to launch a new platform, you'll probably, as a brand, go get a TikTok strategist or go hire like the former, director of brand partnerships from TikTok to your company. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing as, wanting to hire someone as a consultant or a full-time employee as it is to hiring an influencer in a contractor agreement to also either help you put content on your page or help you integrate your audiences together.
In that sense, too, like, I love this trend that we're starting to see more and more of like not just treating a creator influencer as a spokesperson or even like a collaborator, but someone who can truly help you understand your audience better and understand how to make your content better. Let's
Yep.
sort of teach a man to fish and not just like throw a post your way, but we're gonna help you understand, like we're gonna almost be like a quasi consultant. Like
Yeah.
is this something that our brands understand the value inherent in that? Are they take? I mean, even yourself, you serve in fractional roles at times, and in that case, like you're not putting all your time into one company, but you're
Mhm.
putting some time into helping them understand, how to strategize better, how to execute better, whatever it might be, create better content, reach their audience better, attain their goals better. Like, how are you seeing this space kind of evolve in terms of whether it's getting a little bit of equity or getting or being paid
Mhm.
for their time as a consultant as much as they are being paid for their audience.
Yeah. I think, back in 2020, when I first got into this creator space, we were specifically in the creator economy. All those things that you just mentioned were already happening, and I think we had a program in my agency called Influencer in Residence Program, IRPs, where we would actually have a brand come in. And if they were interested, the creator would not only create content on their individual platform and then repost it on the brand's platform or do a brand toggle, whatever, but they would also help the brand come up with their content calendar, their niches, what they're going to post. They would also guest post for the brand and be on that page so that they could lend some both authenticity and authority to the brand's page from an experienced creator, someone who's already pretty well known. So like that's been going on for years. We had multiple clients go through that. We helped launch multiple company pages. And you're seeing that today. I think we're now, this whole sweat equity and equity in general, athlete ownership, I think that's starting to get very, very big. It's been around for years, right? Like think about the Jordan deal of how he ended up being part of that brand, being an owner. All these other deals that have happened with Shohei Ohtani and Lionel Messi. Like I think we're seeing more and more of it now because we're seeing those big headlines. But like that's been going on in the background. Like I've been doing sweat equity since 2019. My first year out of college, I was doing sweat equity. So like I just think there's so much to know in the space, but like you can never know everything. And so, yes, you might be seeing it a little bit more now because it's being more talked about, but it's been going on this whole time, and there's other things in business that have been going on this whole time. So, I think if you're interested, you should spend some time understanding like what that looks like and then go ahead and pitch yourself, like go ahead and work for a company in a fractional role or give them some sweat equity if they're open to it.
How are you kind of seeing in the NIL and athlete world as well, then, of the desire or interest in, yeah, I can take that Gatorade deal or that whatever Bose deal, but I also have an idea for I want to do my own thing. I want to create my own product, create my own brand, whether it's just a
Mhm.
t-shirt line and do some drop shipping or something a little more advanced, like I create some sort of hardware type tool, like an earbud or something like that. Like, are we reaching this point where you're going to see more and more athletes starting their own brands, creating their own products, as opposed to just taking those deals?
Yeah, 100%. I was at a prominent high school yesterday, speaking on this topic, and a couple kids came up to me and said, like, I have my own brand. A parent said, like, my son's got a clothing brand. We do drops. And that's not something that you would have heard years ago. That was never something like, let's call it even like pre-Jordan, right? Like, that's not something that you thought of. That was very, very new at that time, too. So I think we're seeing a lot more of it because I think we're seeing a lot more of that happen in the news. But in reality, like, people launch companies every day. People's companies fail every day. Not every single shoe company or apparel company turns into a Jordan, a Nike, a Adidas, a American Eagle. Like not every one. There's only a few for a reason. Like not every technology company becomes an Nvidia. So I think a lot of athletes will do it. The only cautionary thing I have is like you either need to become an expert on the topic and what you're doing, or you need to bring in somebody
Right.
and that person can come in through sweat equity, through cash, through whatever. But like realize that if you're a new business, yeah, you might say the company's worth $10 million, but in reality, your ARR, your annual recurring revenue, is $20. So you are not worth that. The most you can do is multiply that by, 5 times, by 10 times, whatever. And like that's what your real value is. If you do not understand what I'm saying, you should go watch a couple episodes of Shark Tank and get a crash course in that because not every company is worth what you think it is. Like the value that I put on my agency was not the value that other people put on it. The value that some companies that I work with right now that I'm an advisor for on the board, like they have valuations that I don't think are necessarily accurate, whether they're too low or too high. Like everyone's opinion is different. If you don't know what a data room is and you're trying to get an investment, like good luck. You really, really should Google it and watch YouTube videos and watch Shark Tank. I think again, we're going to see more and more of it because it's been talked about and because now that information is out there. But I don't think that means at all that that's the way that athletes should be going.
I want to like go down that path a little more though, because I was getting excited as you were talking, and I started having more ideas and thoughts of this sort of like this next phase of NIL, and we've seen it play out a little bit. And I'm speaking of naming like this in general, not just in terms of the college athletes. Like I think one of the best examples maybe is like the smartless guys, the podcast guys, like creating like a telecom plan, or you have like
Yeah.
another company who is like basically just lending your NIL to almost like white label a money managing plan or a telecom plan, and it's like it has nothing to do with you, but because your name is on it, maybe someone will buy it, and they'll choose that over another like similar option. Like,
Mhm.
is there this is this a good thing first of all, and like, do you see this opportunity for whether it's a big name creator or a student athlete or a big name athlete in general, saying like, yeah, I will lend my name to this, oh, whatever, name your cable service or a streaming platform or
Mhm.
like line of water bottle products. Whatever. I'm like looking around the room looking for examples now because like all of a sudden like you have these really random things that like
Yeah.
Jason Bateman is going to be selling me my phone plan now because he's on SmartList. Like what? Like I'm interested to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah. I don't think I have like a real like set in stone answer. I think sometimes it works, right? Like sometimes it works because it's relevant to that person and or it's so outrageous you're like, yeah, okay, like I could do this. Like, you know what? I like this person. This looks like something I want. But at the end of the day, like you don't spend money on things that you don't want and you don't repurchase things that aren't worth it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, an athlete, an influencer, a celebrity, like sure, they can put their name on a hair care brand, but if that hair care brand makes your hair like crappy, you're not going to continue buying it. So you're not a returning customer. You are a one-time customer and you fall off the list from there. And like that company doesn't have repeat customers, like are they going to be successful? Probably not. They may be successful with that like one drop of that product, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to buy another product. So I
Yeah.
think there's definitely value in it, but I think at the end of the day, like don't tie yourself to products that aren't quality, right? Like you don't want to turn into these athletes that got caught up in the crypto scandals or any of the other scandals that go out there because they didn't do their due diligence because they thought like this will be easy money. They
Yeah.
didn't look into who owns the company or what products were in the product or all those sorts of things. So I definitely think there's a place for it. I put my name on, when I become an advisor, I put my name, image, and likeness on that company, and my belief in them and my expertise goes with them and my credibility goes with them. So I think everyone has to like do their due diligence and really make a very serious forward thinking decision if they would like to tie themselves to that rather than just like the immediate payout. But I think we're going to see more of it. I think we've been seeing this for forever and it's going to just keep being something that's going to be done.
Yeah, no, it's very much like your NIL. You have to understand that it is your NIL, and there's something that comes with that. Like when you put your
Yeah.
name on something, you lend your NIL, you lend your quote unquote implicit endorsement, whatever it might be. Like I don't think I hope we're not going to see like an AJ Devonta like initial coin offering or something crazy like that,
Yeah.
in the near future. Oh, okay, a couple more subs here with Rachel Maeng. I feel like we can just keep on going forever, and we might just do
Yeah.
that. But a couple more topics I want to hit on before we get to the shareable stat. I want to talk briefly about because you kind of have straddled these worlds and you get some perspective. And I'm not even talking about the brand side, just the idea of like the creators and influencers who are full
Mhm.
timers in that space, and the NIL, the athletes who are kind of doing that on the side or really taking advantage of the opportunity. Like, how can we see these two start to commingle a little bit? It may just be athletes working together and understand that hey, when we collab or we do something together, we are more powerful than we are by ourselves. I mean, look at the stud buds in the WNBA as maybe a small example of that. But even thinking about how a Kai Cenat and LeBron James all of a sudden come together and they're both like I don't know who wears the pants that relationship. Probably LeBron, but Kai Cenat has an enormous audience in terms of what he can offer bring to the table. So how can you start to see athletes really start to uh commingle and collaborate with these full-time creators and vice versa? There might be some full-time creators who are like, yeah, I want to get that college football audience or that college basketball audience or that
Mhm.
basketball audience, whatever it might be. Like, how is sort of like the next phase of what we can see in the creator economy is more intentional collaborations and not necessarily MCNs. Like, I think those days are gone, but something akin to that.
Yeah. I think like this has been happening since the end of time, right? Like there has been celebrity boxing where different
Yeah,
celebrities like get into the boxing ring and they're lending their influence and the interest that people have of like, oh, I want to see them box. Celebrities have been endorsing hair care products and I don't know, like food items because like they're lending their influence to it. So it's been going on, since marketing and advertising has been a thing. And I think that we'll definitely see more of them, like you're saying, like you're seeing Kai work with artists, work with celebrities, etc., to like commingle those audiences together and maybe increase people's platforms on both sides. Something that I've seen and that's been done a lot is like a creator, John Quall, one of my favorite creators. He actually makes content where he not only has a 7-on-7 team, but he'll have a guest quarterback, or
Yeah.
he'll go to a university or a high school and talk about a particular athlete who's doing a great job and deserves to be recruited, and he's lending them that exposure. And so from there it's up to them, depending on how good they are, to actually go and get recruited and to follow up and to do the visits and go to the camps and all those things. But like, you're lending them that exposure. And so I think you're going to maybe see more creators or even former athletes start kind of creating those opportunities where they have a platform where they can provide exposure to NIL, to individual athletes, to schools, products, whatever. I think you're going to see a little bit more of that because we have so many more creators entering the space. But collaborations and like lending each other audiences and influences has been going on since the end of time. So it's,
Totally.
in that case, the more platforms we have, the more you're going to see it.
I want to see it like operationalized even more, like when, like, hey, you're at Duke, you're at Syracuse, you're at Rutgers, whatever. It's like in the dining hall, down there, you're a men's basketball player, but you know what? That track and field athlete also has a lot of followers. You guys should hook up and do something, really
Yeah.
interesting together. Or hey, even an opponent comes into town, like maybe you can do something with an opponent, and or hey, your roommate, your dorm mate, your suite mate down the hallway happens to have 10,000 Twitch followers. Like what can you
Yeah.
guys do together? Like there seems to be some opportunities there that we haven't yet to truly maximize to the fullest degree, I guess.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think at some level, it's like there has to be an organicness to it of like, oh yeah, like we're roommates, we're friends, we're already like all on each other's pages, right? Like Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, they were friends, and
Yeah.
they went to Rutgers together. Of course, they were on each other's content all the time. You're spending all your time with your teammate. And or when I was in college, my roommate was a tennis player, and like I spent a lot of my time with her. So like, of course, if we were doing social media back then, like we were on each other's social media. So there's like that organic level to it, and then there's the other side, the planning of it. um I don't think that I would see an athlete like in college, especially like post something with their opponent. But
Right, right.
the idea of like what that potential like virality could be, because you wouldn't think about seeing that, like that can happen too. I think it's just, as people become more and more comfortable with the content they're sharing, how to make content, how to make it quick, and understanding their audiences and understanding these platforms of like, oh, okay, if I do something that is out of normal or out of character, like in a good way that would surprise people, like, oh, maybe that'll go viral and maybe I should be doing this more. I think that content creators have completely understood and leveraged that idea across different platforms. All the creators I've ever worked with, talent, etc., they all cross collaborate.
Yeah.
Even in brand deals, like we are literally cross collabing using a brand toggle on Instagram to mix the two audiences. So like on a institutional level, that's been happening, is happening. Even the technology is built to do that. So I think, as it pertains to people that are new in the space and or are just not thinking of it, I think it's happening now and it'll continue to happen. But like, who knows? We might see another version that TikTok has where it's like the two videos side by side, or we use AI where you can film a video and then another creator can film a video. You hit a toggle and suddenly you're in the same video.
Right.
So it's like technology, I think, plays a huge part in that.
Yeah, no, I mean we're already seeing like YouTube has collab features now, of course, and
Yeah.
I can also see like when I was in college, like there was the lacrosse house and there's like the football house. Like
Yeah.
these are just other versions
Yeah,
of
and sometimes like I lived in a gymnastics and volleyball apartment. So like if we were big on social, if we were on TikTok now, like how we were, or if we were on TikTok then, how we weren't now, 100%, we would all be like all up on each other's feeds.
yeah. It's like the new influencer house is like the athlete can be the athlete house, and that there's these stories to tell their
Oof,
personalities.
influencer houses.
That was a fun
We've
time.
had them.
But no, I'm interested to see where the space continues to go, and I think also too one last thing to show stat. You I were touching on this a little bit even before we started recording is this growth in the brand world of everyone wants their headline to be, look at what we're doing in the creator space. We have our next big group of creators that we're working with now, and sometimes it's just a headline. Sometimes it's actually like real money being exchanged. Sometimes it's just we're giving some free product to hundreds of people, and we're
Mhm.
calling it an influencer strategy. Like, are we at a point now where like there's so much, not necessarily pressure, but this like overarching interest, and we want to make sure that the our shareholders and our customers know that we are doing something in the creator space, versus just like actually having a robust strategy. Like, how are we getting a little bit too much into the hype and not enough of like truly good execution? Or are you starting to see just truly like there is a big chunk of budget that is being allocated to, we know we need to do something in the creator space. We're not sure what yet. We're gonna hire someone to help us figure out what that what is. But we understand that this is now a more beneficial, more valuable use of our budget than the alternative.
Yeah. I mean, over time, I think since social media has become so prevalent, like we've moved from 30% to 50% to 60% to 70%, probably closer to 80% now of companies that are utilizing some level of influencer strategy, whether that be endorsements from celebrities or influencers on social media or athletes on the course. Like, I think pretty much a major like number one a majority, but number two maybe even upwards of 80% of companies are doing it now. I 100% think that's going to continue to grow. I think the opportunity is again sharing the levels of influence that a brand has and maybe a creator has, whether it's physically sharing them through a social media platform or sharing it through like vision and influence, just like in the general, releasing a news article or somebody talking about it, the endorsement of it. I think that if a company is not doing it, it's probably going to do it or at least try it this year or next year or sometime
Yeah.
in the future. Um, I think if you're not doing it, I'm not going to say it's a miss, but it is a missed opportunity that you could be doing in a way that makes sense for your company. I think there are companies that it may not make as much sense, to do a collaboration with an influencer or a celebrity, but you could try and you could get creative and see if maybe, using an education creator, one that talks about like, demystifying legal advice and things like that. Like, oh, maybe a law firm might want to work with them and say, like, I am an individual lawyer. I can't take on another case, but you know who can? My partner, XYZ. So I think, there are industries that have such high regulations that it's really, really hard for them to utilize influencers in this way, but they may find other ways to do it. And then there's some companies that don't think that they have the budget, that will realize that they need to have a budget or that they have a little bit of budget that they can use for it, that will start using it. So I think if it's not at 80% right now, it's going to be over 80% by the end of the year or next year.
Do you see like the goals and KPIs for these types of campaigns evolving or changing at all? Or what are you seeing right now as those main KPIs? Like, I think early on it's all affiliate deals and use and direct response, and so we can track it, direct sales, and that still probably does prevail as the most common thing right now. But like, is there a little bit of brand marketing plays as well? Like, we know we're going to get a nice halo. We're going to increase our consideration among this audience, and we can't tie it directly to sales, but we know it's there. We can connect dots, or even something along the lines of like, when you're executing an influencer campaign or a creator campaign, is it more about like, we want to have our brand featured and mentioned on their platforms, and we're not even going to collab with them, or we
Mhm.
want to broader their audience and try to increase our own channels and increase our followers, increase our ability to reach more audiences moving forward, even when that relationship is over.
Yeah. I honestly think if you don't have the system set up to understand like what lift any tactic is giving you, you probably shouldn't do it. Like you shouldn't just do influencer marketing or celebrity marketing or even like go on TikTok versus Instagram without understanding like what impact that has, either positive or negative, like on your customer base. So I think that's first and foremost. Second, attribution is not new. For years, there have been pixels that people embed
Oh,
in newsletters. Like people know if you saw an ad on Instagram, but you bought after you went to Google, like that, you originally saw the ad on Instagram. So, those tracking things, like they have been around for so long that I think that's just like normal. But as more and more companies decide to market on these platforms or market maybe through even like the metaverse and things like that, it's all about like where are your customers, meet them where they are, and then build up your customer base and your followers through these different platforms. But at the end of the day, if somebody's not clicking on your ad, it's not going to give you, excuse me, any purchases. It's not going to give you any new users or downloads, etc. So no matter where you put it, number one, you should be able to again track it to see if it's actually doing something for your company. But number two, put it where your customers are and create these opportunities for them to engage and or purchase or whatever that metric is.
Yeah, no, I mean we spent so much time like thinking about, and not to get too nerdy here about digital marketing, but last touch attribution and but oftentimes
Yeah.
when you're working with an influencer creator, that sometimes is the first touch because it's a new audience you're trying to get at, and so it's not going to be like you shouldn't be trying to sell them on the first touch. That's
Yep.
not going to be. You have to nurture them and get them there and all that as
Yep.
well. All right, I lied. There's going to be one more question here, which I'm super interested in your thoughts on this because I've touched on this a little bit with previous guests in the past, and that is the idea of athletes in particular, of thinking about how they can own their audience and truly like do the most they can with it moving forward. And what I'm getting at is like, how can we start to think about student athletes and athletes in general collecting information of their audience? And that might be, hey, I'm gonna give away a signed ball or signed card, whatever it might be, and you're gonna fill in your name and email in order to get it. Now all of a sudden I have
Mm.
10,000 people I can hit up at any time directly, not have to worry about algorithms or whatnot. Like, how are we thinking about owning audiences, especially as platforms evolve, as TikTok might go away in the States? Like, how can we kind of hedge against that and also truly understand the value of owning an audience and what that means?
Yeah. First and foremost, TikTok's not going anywhere. It was never going away the first time. It's too big of a platform in the country. Too many companies pour millions of dollars into it. It affects our economy, so it's not going anywhere.
Thinking about like if I'm an athlete, how can I just
Oh, owning your audience.
build my
Okay.
own CRM essentially?
Yeah. I think, brands have discovered many ways that they already do this with like email mailing lists, like you said, with comment here. There's something called ManyChat that a lot of
Right.
creators are using where you in the caption say, like, oh, comment below and I'll send you the link. And then they send you the link either through the comments section or they do it through a DM, or you have to sign up and follow them and then they'll send you an email. So I think technology allows us to have these different opportunities to meet our followers and audience and customers and engage them in different ways. And I think that as the technology evolves and as we're able to do more things, people will utilize them more. But at the end of the day, like you're meeting your customers where they are. If you purchase something, you probably have their email, you probably have their location, like all those sorts of things. And all these platforms that utilize, whether it's Google or it's Instagram, you can see the analytics of your followers, of your customers. You know where they are geographically, their ages, their genders, and that can help you build like a customer report or like an audience uh like list and things like that, understanding like who they are. But I think it's smart to diversify yourself off of those platforms in the case that maybe you don't want to make content anymore, or maybe that page gets hacked or it gets taken down. It's only smart to have other means of ways of communicating and leveraging and monetizing these people. But I think, as the broad answer is, as technology gets better and we have more opportunities, people are going to do more things to collect their audience.
Totally. I mean, the first party data, zero party data, whatever you want to talk about, and because it's one thing to say my average Instagram post will reach this many people, but everyone remembers like maybe a couple of years ago with Spotify and FC Barcelona, where Spotify's like, "What do you mean you only have information about a tiny portion of your fan base, your follower base, whatever it might be?" And I can think about the same way where if I'm an athlete or a creator and be like, hey, yes, my average post will reach this many people, but I also have a direct way
Yeah.
to reach 25,000 people, and I know all
Yep.
about them, and I have all their
Yep.
information, and it's super compelling to think
Yep.
about.
And the thing is, creators have been leveraging that even since like 2020, 2021. As social media got bigger, creators were monetizing their discords. I had creators that like their full-time job was moderating their own discord that had a paywall to get into it. And that was like their stream of income on top of social media. Social media was just a platform to get them into the discord. So, people have been diversifying the platforms that they do their business on for years. And I think as we get more and more platforms, as we get more and more tools and technology that help us leverage those platforms and or diversify them, I think it's only going to get bigger.
Oh gosh, you're bringing up like Discord and communities. It makes me want to go down the avenue of
Yeah.
like paid communities and branded communities and influencer based communities. But I won't let myself go there because we're having more fun with you in our additional Ask Sigma first episode shareable stat coming up right now. Just awesome, awesome stuff being able to speak with Rachel. As I mentioned, from the first time I spoke with her, I was blown away. She is wise beyond her years and just has so much good information. Is really thoughtful and articulate with her answers, as you heard there. Stick around because you're going to definitely want to hear more of my conversation with Rachel in the quick hitting questions, the additional ask segment. Some really great stories and insights there, trust me. But first, this episode's shareable stat. This episode's shareable stat is about Gen Z and video. We all have heard plenty of polls and whatnot around how young people want to be influencers when they grow up now. And that's like the new, I want to, for me, I want to be a baseball player when I grew up. But if you are young these days, oftentimes you want to be a YouTuber. But an interesting poll came out that showed 65% of Gen Z, of course, Gen Z is including many adults these days who are already working, 65%, around two-thirds, consider themselves content creators, particularly with video as well. Like that is just astounding. I mean, maybe you're not surprised by that, but two out of every three people in the Gen Z demographic that you meet will consider themselves content creators. So what does that mean for you? If you're working for a team, a league, a brand, or whatever it might be, it's yes, we are already leaning into the influencer and creator aspect of things, but how can we lean even further into UGC and not just UGC being the the grainy or wobbly mobile video after a big play happens. Those are still certainly fun when you're celebrating a big moment, everyone's jumping around and you see that true UGC. But I think when we think of UGC, we think of those types of videos. But how can we do even more when you have two-thirds of Gen Z thinks themselves as content creators in general? How can we start to think more about co-creation around letting them, inviting them to be part of the content creation process, of inviting them to, use some of your assets? Can you give them access to some assets that are, they're allowed to use legally, whether that's clips or highlights or creative, whatever it might be? Yes, there are some guardrails you might want to keep in place there as well, because it could go the wrong way. But as more and more as content creation becomes easier and easier as well with Gen AI, and these trend continues to grow with Gen Z wanting to be content creators, it just really makes you step back and think, what does it mean? What can we do with this young, emerging, continuing to make more money audience and demographic that is actively creating content that can be your fan evangelist, that can be your voluntary marketing force, that can co-create with you and create remixes and edits and things that you didn't even know you could do yourself. We already see so many of these fan edits going viral on TikTok and YouTube and whatnot. How can we maybe bring that into our environment? You're starting to see there's some emerging companies that are trying to create, whether it's with a team or league themselves or on their own, these sort of like fan feeds, fan made feeds within an app or within an own and own operated channel where you see, yes, you see the official team content, but you also can see some really sick fan made content as well. So certainly a trend that I'm keeping my eye on, and this shareable stat just underscores the opportunity with Gen Z and their facility as well as their willingness and desire to create content. So again, that shareable stat, 65% of Gen Z consider themselves content creators. So think about it, ponder it, take action on it. More importantly, stick around because more good stuff coming up in the additional ask segment with Rachel Maeng. I am back for this episode's shareable stat, and I am joined once again by Rachel Maeng. She is just kicked ass interview. Are you now ready, Rachel? Sorry to do our additional ask segment. We always have additional asks.
Yeah.
We touched on so many good things in our interview: influencer, creator, NIL, sponsorship, brands, events. I mean, so many good things there. Are you? And now it's time for the first question, and this is a good one. We touched on your background in rowing a little bit, and and maybe not everyone knows about rowing. So tell us first what a coxswain does, and also just what's the life of a coxswain in rowing. I know when I was in college, those were those early morning practices when it's freezing outside on the cold water. So just tell us all we need to know about what it's like being a coxswain on a collegiate rowing team.
Yeah, yeah. So a coxswain is the person on the team on the boat that is not actually rowing. They're steering the boat first and foremost, but then they're also like developing and executing strategies. So, in the fall, we actually race longer races. And then in the spring, we race like about a mile in a straight race. So the fall is like a curvy race. So the coxswain actually steers the boat and like tries to, in a sense, like cut time and cut distance off the corners a little bit within like the buoy lines that you have to stay in. And then in the spring, it's really just like a straight shot.
Yeah.
So it is a very more mental position than it is physical.
So what's really sore after a race, or what gets the most tired? Are you using arms, using legs? Is your
Yeah.
voice tired from yelling at the other rowers?
Yeah, yeah. So if you're a rower, it's your legs. Like honestly, rowing is pretty much all legs, and then you finish the row like with your back and your arms. For a coxswain, like a lot of times you lose your voice. That's kind of just normal. My voice has actually changed over life for like the 8 years that I was a coxswain. My voice did not always sound like this. I think it was actually like higher. I think it's gotten like lower over time. And so I would frequently lose my voice. If I could recommend a cough drop, it would be Ludens. They are my favorite. And it's funny, like if you're a larger coxswain like me, you're supposed to be like 110 pounds. I was well above that in college. Your hips hurt because like you don't fit in the boat because the seat is like this big, like it's very narrow. You're supposed to be
Yeah.
very small to sit in the boat and steer because you're dead weight. So actually I hurt my back my freshman year in college and stayed hurt all 4 years until my senior year. I had to get a surgery on my back because I got hurt from being a coxswain.
So I'm sorry, I'm way too interested in this. Like, what kind of things are you yelling during a race? Are you yelling people's names? Are you yelling like a direction, or like what are you yelling?
Yeah, mainly you're helping them keep time. You're also educating them like in that quick moment of where the other boats are. Cause like the rowers actually row backwards. They can't see where the other boats are unless they're
Right.
behind you. So the whole time you're telling them like how many seats. So every boat has, let's call it 8 seats in an 8-person boat. So if you're up one seat, you're one seat above the next boat winning by one seat. So
Okay.
you're telling the other boats like where you guys are in the race in comparison to the other boats. You're also helping keep time. You're also keeping pace and things like that.
I mean, and too bad you missed out on when you could have been doing NIL deals with cough drops in
I
college.
know, right? I would have done cough drops. I would have done coffee. I would have done athleisure and apparel. Man, I would have done pens because I only use one type of pen. I've been using it since college. And I kid you, like I have OCD, but I'm so OCD that I only use the same pens. I have the same notepad. I use the same coffee cup and the same tumbler that like once I find the pinnacle and like the peak of what I need, I stick with that. Like I am loyal to a T to like my coffee mug.
That kind of brand loyalty.
Yeah.
That's what. Number two, we're going to go way back. This goes as far back as you want, as you can remember. The first social media platform you ever remember joining, and that it could be MySpace, it could be something be proto MySpace. I don't know, whatever it is. Just tell us what it was, and also like the earliest you recall, sort of thinking about like the strategy of it. Like, oh, when I do this, it got more likes, or it's got more comments. So take us to like the earliest memories of social for you.
Yeah. I think my earliest like social media platform was probably MySpace. And I think I put music on there and like random things. I think one time this is so funny. I don't think anyone knows this. My friends in like middle school and maybe before that tried to like start a blog that was kind of like the Mean Girls like burn book. Um, so I know that's so bad, but I think we did that in like middle school. But as far as platforms go, yeah, I think it was MySpace and I want to say like AIM back when like you had to like hang up the phone so you could use the internet. I think that's what I
Totally.
was using back then.
And on MySpace too, like, did you think about like I'm building it for myself, or I'm building it to try to impress people that come to it, like for my friends and peers?
I think at that time it was just for me. I
Yeah,
think like as I got older, probably like Facebook, Instagram, that's when I really started to have that like mentality of like, oh, this is a persona.
yeah,
And like this is for other people to find. But I think like way back then I was like, I'm just gonna put this music that I like. And like,
oh yeah.
that was the introduction of, oh, you can code and like copy and paste this from something and put it on. I'm like, oh, now I have a music player on here.
Totally. I feel like there's a little bit of a mini comeback of like not necessarily MySpace, but like creating a space like that. It's super creative. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Tumblr's still around, and
Yeah, but I mean, even like beacons, right? Like they're one of my favorite media kit platforms. You can
yeah.
make a beacons media link, you can customize it, you can play music on there, you can have a store, you can have your social media analytics. So like I definitely think media kits, link and bios are kind of like this generation's version of MySpace.
That's a really good call, actually. That's super
Yeah.
interesting. Number three for you, Rachel, I'm interested in this one. So you begin working with a talent or a brand that you haven't worked with before. Describe like what you go through and sort of evaluating their current presence, their content, their strategy. When you know you're ready to work with them, and like what you're going to recommend, what you're going to suggest. Like what's your process for sort of that audit, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. I think between talent, brand, investment, like company that I'm working with, it's also different. But I think at the end of the day, I only want to work with talent, brands, and companies in the portfolio that align with me. It's do you guys have the competency of what you are personally or like what the business brand is, and are you executing it across whatever platforms you are on, or have a plan at least to execute that properly? Is that realistic? And do you have a vision for the future of the company, your personal brand, whatever it is, that you're strong in that vision, you're taking actionable steps toward it? And again, is it realistic? That's
Yeah.
honestly like that first level that I go through with anyone that I work with is this a good fit for me personally? And then the other side of like the reality and the competency.
Yeah, like do they have conviction in what they're doing, and
Yeah,
then and certainly and does it match with you?
100%.
I take the same approach when I'm like looking at like Hinge profiles. Number four, this is always a great one, especially for someone who's run a business. If you can go back and what would you go back and tell yourself when you were first starting your business? Or what's that piece of advice you want to tell Rachel before she got into that entrepreneurial game?
My God, so much. Um, been through so much as an entrepreneur. I I wish I was like more collaborative. Like I did have co-founders way at the beginning, but I wish that I sought out like more expertise and more mentorship. My whole career, I really never had anyone that I looked up to in business.
Mhm.
As a whole, like me, who I am, and like what I want to represent and what I want to do, I still have not found like an individual who does the same thing. But I found like to this day now so many great people who were great at like being an entrepreneur and then selling a company. I learned something from them. I learned something from like a woman who's been through so much adversity in the sports space as a journalism person, or as a publicist or whatever that might be. And I think, yes, like I understood the importance of networking, but I don't think I was as intentional as I should have been back then of speaking to someone and like really, really learning the story and the adversities and like what they learned as a result, because you're only as good as your failures and like what you've learned from them. Like I've been through so much adversity, through so many failures in my life. And the only reason that I was still able to do what I do now, and even, what I can do in the future, is learning from your mistakes. And so I wish I'd spent more time finding mentors and learning from their mistakes.
Love that one. Yeah, there's a fine line. I hear this from entrepreneurs all the time too. Like there are some days when you feel like the most confident, most successful person ever, and
Oh
there's
my
other days where
gosh.
you feel like,
It's such an up and down. It's such an ebb
yeah.
and flow.
And so it's important to like, yes, you need to have confidence to start your own business, to become an entrepreneur, but you also
Yeah.
need to have the humility to say, there's a lot I don't know. I can learn from others, and
Yeah.
you're able to pick up that as you've gone in your career. That's great.
100%.
This is gonna be a fun one. Tell me your most memorable or just your favorite campaign for every reason that you worked on.
I'm not so okay. So this isn't, I don't think it's like necessarily my favorite, but it's like the most impactful. Um, when we first started the agency, our first year in, we had an influencer house, and it was or centered around FinCon, which is an investment conference. We
Hmm.
had a bunch of creators in that house. I think it was like 11 that were actually staying there at one time for this week that we had the event. And I was the event lead. I also was like the on-site event lead with my other co-founder, and we were filming our Netflix documentary during it. We had Wall Street Bets there. We had multiple brand partners that were there, and it was so stressful that I actually developed a cyst in my face. Like somehow, like some because like you have bacteria in your mouth, you have bacteria in your skin, whatever. But like my immune system was so low because for that whole week I wasn't eating. I was just chugging coffee and energy drinks, trying to stay alive. That it turned into like a whole like cyst. And it ended up pinching a nerve, and like my whole face blew up. Like I couldn't move the left side of my face, mainly like around my mouth area. um and I was in so much like genuine nerve pain because I pinched a nerve, that I went to the hospital, and then the cyst burst and I went into sepsis and I almost died. And I literally had to stay overnight in the hospital. They had to like give me pump IV antibiotics. I ended up getting surgery. And as I'm going under the knife in surgery, I'm on the phone with my co-founder, like, I'll be out in like 2 hours max. And then like, we really need to talk about this. And he's like, yeah, you need to calm down. And the surgeon literally was like, I'm going to take your phone now. And I get out of it and get out of the surgery. It's successful. I'm like home. I'm supposed to be bedridden for 2, 3 weeks. And I'm literally working in bed, taking meetings full time as if nothing had happened, but with my camera off. And for like a year after or so, like I actually couldn't move the left side of my mouth. Like it wouldn't smile. So like now I smile with only the right side. Like I only, like if you ever look, I only like smirk. Um, and like the swelling went down, and like I, can still, now I can move the left side of my face a little bit more. But like I hid that for years because it was just an effect of being an entrepreneur and like pushing yourself beyond the limits and like that. I went on a podcast after and was like, I think I actually learned I could work myself to literal death. So I'm not going to say that was necessarily my favorite, but that was like a huge impact in my life of understanding like mental health, work-life balance, and yeah, honestly, even like what I could go through and come back from.
Yeah, so much there. I mean, I'm glad you came out of it
Looking
okay,
back
obviously,
at,
and
yeah,
just
that was a good time.
wow. I'm stunned. I can barely go on here. That's incredible. I don't know how we're gonna get to the next question, but this will be less wild to hear, I think. So number six for you, Rachel, tell me the non-obvious software or app or whatever, or piece of software that you found most beneficial in your work and why. So not like email or PowerPoint or Slack,
Yeah, yeah.
something a little bit less obvious that is just, indispensable to your work.
Notion. I will never stop talking about this. Like I love Notion. It literally, I use it in my personal life. I use it in my planning. I use it for my businesses. When I do fractional work as a COO, I literally tell them like we are only building this system based on Notion with all the APIs and integrations. I absolutely love the product. If I could have a brand new with Notion, I would like to. I first of all, I talk about them every single day, use them every single day. But I would do it for free. But it's just the idea of having a project management system, of having some sort of centralized internal infrastructure, I think is so incredibly important. Like I built the product based on Notion with all these different integrations using APIs for my company. And that's what allowed me to run the company for 4 years, being remote and having employees come in and out. We had a huge intern program. So I was always trying to mentor younger college students into how to do this whole talent management thing, and how to work with brands. And everything was automated. Everything was in one system. I could access it from anywhere, any staff. I could change the permissions where, if they're working with me or they weren't working with me, talent could access it, brands could access it. Like it is such an incredible tool. And just in general, like the use of technology in the right way will only make you better. And I'm a big believer in technology.
That is a great call out, and yeah, I've heard only good people who use
Yeah.
Notion just love it because it's so versatile. There's
Yep.
nothing you can't do with it. It seems like it's just wild,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
a robust, vast template library you can learn from what others have already set up.
100%.
That's
And like
awesome.
YouTube, you can YouTube any of that stuff.
True, very true. This is gonna be a good one here as well. You are super knowledgeable about the space. So take us through like how do you keep up with the industry, whether that's just not necessarily just social, but brand and creator and like what's your diet like to keep up with everything that's going on and updates and all that.
Yeah, I think it's two-part for me. One, I'm a huge believer in education. Like I know that I don't know everything and you couldn't possibly know everything. So I actually listen to 6 podcasts a day and I watch 3 documentaries a week. It could be about anything. Like I really like animals. So like half the documentaries I watch most of the time are about animals and sharks. But I'm a big believer in just learning in general. And then second to that, I borrow information and education from other people. Like I can't possibly know what's going on in every single company and every single industry at all times, but I know people that are at the forefront of all those industries and technology and different areas, and I like to talk to them, whether it's like through a podcast or it's through a Google Meet or it's at an event, and just like learn what they're doing, what they've done and experienced and what they've learned from it. So I'm a big believer in like the concept of networking, but really like using it as an educational tool for yourself.
I absolutely love that. And that's partly how you and I met. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
it wasn't about like, well, how is this person going to help me in my career? It was like she has a lot of knowledge. I want to learn from her, and those conversations are the best, and how we can keep on learning.
Yep,
Awesome.
100%.
It's time for our food question, Rachel. I'm gonna ask for a bunch of food recommendations here. So first, tell
Oh
me.
yeah, I'm better at LA, but I can definitely give you some in New York.
So we'll do a little all of the above then. So tell me where the best meal to get in LA and where to get it. Also
Okay.
the best like best like signature food around Rutgers, and also the best meal you had in Syracuse.
Okay, so I'm not a foodie. I really don't even understand what that means, to be honest, but like I'm not technically a foodie, but like I had this belief that if I'm paying for something, I better like it. Because why would I waste hard-earned money on something that I don't like just because it's popular or,
Yeah.
just because I'm trying something new. But I only go to restaurants that either I've been to and that I keep in an Apple Notes that literally when I go to events, I will share this Apple Note with anybody. Like if you are a first-time LA person, let me share you my Apple Note of restaurants because I have very high opinions. Second, I also just again if someone else recommends it to me, like I need to know why you recommend it, what you ate in the menu that was great,
Yeah.
and I'm probably not going to try something else because if you didn't say it was great, like if someone I trust did not say it was good, it's probably not good. So that's my thoughts on LA. I just went to Thai show last night. That is above and beyond one of my favorite restaurants. It's partially owned by Dr. Dre, so the music is phenomenal. The
Oh,
atmosphere is phenomenal. Just FYI, if anyone's coming to LA, Tom is their manager, and he will hook you up. And I love him, and I can't wait to have all my clients have their events there. This was last night, but I go there all the time. Um, in New York, I would say Nini's Taqueria. The reason I say is because my partner and I, that was our first date. And I also have never had birria and consomme like I had it there ever, even in LA, which is like touts West Coast, like
yeah.
tacos. Like I do not like them. I only like Nini's in Brooklyn. And it's also like a mom and pop shop. So I really, really love that. Lastly, at Rutgers, two things. One, I would say this Chinese spot that is like right down the street from where a lot of the athletes lived in these apartments called Birchwood. It got bad. It got to the point where like they recognized my voice over the phone and they're like, "Hi, Rachel. Like, yeah, you can pick it up. Come walk down the street." So that was too much. But second, Diesel and Duke. It's a burger spot on campus. And I like really wasn't a big burger person until I went there and I had it like on one random, like out on the town night. It was like, oh my gosh, like a barbecue burger with French fries. Yeah, I miss
Oh
that.
yeah. I like it. We got some good food recommendations. Not and we know we can trust you because you're not just like saying what's popular. You're
No,
saying
my Apple Note is like organized by area of the city because it's hard to get from like west side to east
yeah.
side, from downtown to West Hollywood. So it's organized by area in the city, what I rank it, what food to get, and then like what cuisine. So like I go on the Apple Note, I'm like, I'm feeling Chinese today, or like, oh, I'm feeling I don't know, some like Italian pasta. And like I go to the list, and I'm like, if I'm feeling it, I have three options. It's one of these three.
Oh, I cannot wait to come up to LA and get a meal with you then. That's gonna be great. I can trust it. Next one for you coming down the wire here with Rachel Maeng. Tell me the athlete or creator whose content or strategy has caught your eye recently. Well, it can be a very, very broad question. Anyone in that space, just tell us of someone that you like what they're doing recently.
Yeah, yeah. So I have to shout out one of my companies in my portfolio. It's called Vidport, but there's also a number of companies that he's also involved in. His name is Cam Scott. Um, he honestly, like, we've had so many conversations. Obviously, I'm advising the company and the product that they're creating and the community that they have, but he's so intelligent about how he approaches content creation. It's really, he does use all the viral trendy hooks and all those little tactics, but like he's trying to educate people about content creation and things like that. And you might actually know him too, but he is one of the people that's really impressed me so far. That's why, I'm really careful about the companies that I advise. And so that made it into my portfolio. And to me, like I believe in founders, and I believe in like their plans and like what I think makes sense in the industry, just from working in it from experience. And I think what he's doing and what he's got is just something that I believe in.
It's a great call. Yeah, founder-led content, founder companies with
Yeah,
the founders who can get an audience, who can articulate what their
yep,
product does in a strong
exactly.
way. Like so cool, so great. All right, last one to get you out of here on. This is meant to be very open-ended and broad. I just have the opportunity to pick someone's brain of like yourself to tell me just what area of this greater creator NIL athlete space, what area do you have your eye on for innovation or expansion and why?
I think, and I've actually been saying this since 2021 and before, but I think it's the data aspect of NIL. And it's not like the data of like, oh, we should quantify that this athlete deserves $8 million versus this athlete that deserves $100,000. It's not that. It's the understanding of these social media platforms and the athletes, and then understanding like how a brand gets that information about what their audience looks like, and then quantifies, yeah, like how much should I pay them based off of that. But then even like the technology and the relationships of how the brands work with the athlete and how they work with the school and all those things. So I think tools that really help and facilitate true NIL versus like just salary caps and such, that's like really where my mind goes to. And it's because my experience has been so rooted in the influencer economy,
Yeah.
and the tools that I think are really important there. I love beacons. I also have recently come across RootNote, and Jason, their founder, is incredibly intelligent with like how he designs the media kits and how he works with different universities and works with different clients and athletes. And in my opinion, like they're doing all the right things.
Great call out there. Yeah, I think it's really interesting too to think about like there's like we can't call NIL when you're paying for someone who's really just really good at their sport. Like, and
Yeah,
you're not
that's
necessarily
not,
that's not the value
that's
of
an
their NIL then.
endorsement. That's an
That's their
athletic
value to you as a
endorsement.
quarterback or as a point guard or whatever it might be. And so yeah, it's like the nomenclature has to be a little more accurate, I guess, when it comes to that as well. All right, Rachel, kicked ass in the additional
Yeah,
ass segment.
100%.
Now your chance to stick with the podcast for me. Tell us your social media all-star follow, or not necessarily social media, but just tell us it could be a podcaster, a blogger, a newsletter, an Instagram follow, TikTok follow, YouTuber. Just tell us who they are and why they're following.
Oh, I think I would definitely say right now, Track Baby 001. Santia, she is a former flag football athlete. She paused in her career because she did have an injury, but she may come back. Who knows? You'll have to ask her. But we had a great conversation recently, and just talking about women on the forefront of NIL and education and athlete advocacy. Like we had such a great, genuine conversation about that, and like our relationship, even with Sam Green and her Athlete Con 2.0 coming up in June at the same time as NACDA. If you're not going, you should be going, especially if you're an athlete and you're looking to become a content creator.
Yeah.
But just shouting out Santia, and then also shouting out NIL with Sam Green, because I'm going to be at the conference, I'm going to be at NACDA, and these people that are in the space for the right reasons and focus so much on education and democratizing information for athletes and for brands and for agents that do it for the right reasons. I fully stand behind them.
Hell yeah. Great shout there. We will link up her handles in the show notes. And how about you, Rachel? Where can you find all things related to you and all your content and information?
Yeah. So anything Rachel Maeng, RachelMaeng. That's the handle on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, IMDb, all of it.
Find her. She's all over, as you guys can attest and hear and listen to today. She's full of good knowledge and insights and
Google
anecdotes and
me.
examples. Yeah, there we go. Kurt Signetti, Google me. I love that. But I cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast today, Rachel. It's so good to learn from you, and always good when we talk. I always come away so inspired and enlightened, and that was no exception today. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, of course.
Just fantastic stuff being able to speak with Rachel. Again, she just does so much good work. If you have connected with her, you know how good she is. If you haven't, I encourage you to. If you're no matter whether you're an athlete, a brand, or a business, an organization, as you can tell from our chat with her in the additional ask segment as well, she has her finger on the pulse of emerging technologies and new products and services that are entering this industry. And she's an investor herself and has been an operator, so she knows how to help businesses. She spoke about some of those that she's working with now. So just so much good stuff from Rachel, and cannot thank her enough for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciate her time and insight and knowledge. But that'll do for this episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. Thanks again for listening or downloading or watching. As always, I'm your host, Neil Horwitz. Find me on Twitter, NJ287, on LinkedIn, the website, dsmsports.net, and the podcast. I encourage you to subscribe and check out the full archive on whichever podcast platform is your favorite. Until next time, this is Neil Horwitz signing off for the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast.